This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/red5.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Well, hello, everybody in Scuttlebutt Land. What's happening, folks? And it's the best land. Take me to God's country. That is, that's what all the people are saying. But welcome, everybody, to a midweek Scarif Live here on the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast, part of the Red 5 Network. As you can see, look at that sticker right there. My friend Penny just got a couple of stickers from our Scarif sticker swag collection. Nice that I got a message. We'll see where she puts some of them. I said it'd be great to see them on laptops, refrigerators, or light posts, but we don't condone vandalism. Or do we? How's it going, Spencer?
It's going good. Excited to delve into this, and lots of fun surprises today, especially of all things.
Yeah, absolutely. Some new stuff came out today. People are chomping at the bit. And what I know you asked me before we started rolling, but I really enjoyed the trailer for this new Star Wars animation show. I know Damon is in the chat. He slid into my DMs, as the kids are saying these days, with a link to the trailers. But pretty good. I did post, and I don't know if this is controversial or not, but I did post that it seems like Star Wars animation seems a little more solid when it comes to stories, and I guess the acceptance of some of these shows for the fans. What did you think of the trailer?
I'm looking forward to it because Cad Bane is one of my favorite characters in general. Like, he's just a badass bounty hunter, and so
yeah.
Seeing more Cad Bane, I'm excited to see more Cad Bane. It will be interesting to see if the story warrants sort of seeing an origin. I'm also curious of what other episodes we're going to get with him.
Sure,
but
sure.
What I find interesting though is I wasn't expecting more Asajj,
right?
Of interest with. I didn't completely feel like her comeback was warranted in Bad Batch, and I was expecting that they were actually going to do another novel. And I wasn't expecting this story with her to be continued in animation. So it'll be interesting to see that. I just hope they can justify bringing her back still, because I don't feel like they have yet.
Yeah, she seemed kind of a throwaway, situation, scenes or whatever at the end of Bad Batch there. But reminding myself of the scene. It does seem like somehow she might be tied with the Omega character in the future. Come, whatever it is that they're trying to do. We'll see what happens. Indiana Jim, what is happening? The Ventress Reclamation Project. Yes. But it's always good to see kind of older characters. We'll see what it's about. When does that drop?
May 4th.
Oh yeah, that's right. May 4th. The unofficial Star Wars Day. It's like a Hallmark holiday. For me, the actual Star Wars Day is May 25th. But yeah.
Indeed.
Who else is in the chat? Let's see. Damon says we've never really had a bad anime series besides the weak Resistance show, Rebels, Clone Wars, Bad Batch, Tales, etc. All great, and we hope to see Quinlan and her story. Yeah, That's what I'm saying. I think, even Resistance, I know not a lot of people watch that show. It was geared towards a very young audience. I watched it with my son, the 2 seasons. And towards the end of that run, the stories were starting to get a little more darker. I always talk a little bit about that when Resistance comes up. The stories started to be a little more, I guess, important if you're a young person watching this show, and if you're a young person kind of struggling with feelings of loyalty to friends or institutions. And I think that's where it started to get interesting. But, we'll see. We'll see. What does Indiana Jones say? I really liked Resistance. It was just tied too closely to the sequels. Yeah. And there were some things that were kind of running concurrently, some stories. You can see that, Kylo was involved, obviously. But, yeah, we'll just looking forward to new Star Wars. And I'm wondering, too, I mentioned to you, Spencer, I don't know what they're going to announce during Star Wars Celebration in Japan. But I'm sure it'll be something. Japan is a wonderful venue to be able to kind of feature some new Star Wars stuff. So that'll be a lot of fun. What do you think?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm unsure. I mentioned this to you just before as well, that I don't know if they're going to be announcing anything else, because as far as I just remember from their descriptions, they were talking about the next animated project. So I wonder if this is what it is that they just ended up revealing here. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'd like for them to actually reveal like what their next main series is, though. So like,
Right.
We'll
And
see.
3 months ago, I remember somebody posted that Lucasfilm Animation, or whatever, the company that puts all these things together, they were looking for animators. So I don't know if that's for this or it's gearing up for a new project in the running. So that'll be interesting to find out. But what else do we have Star Wars wise coming forward? We got, obviously, we're in the month of April. We're in the running. We're getting ready basically to see to watch Andor season 2. So I'm excited about that. But what else do we have? Ahsoka season 2, the animation.
Vision season 3 is this year, so that rounds out the 3 series we're getting.
Yeah, I enjoyed Visions season 2 more than 1. There were some stories in season 2 that were just really stupendously done. What are your thoughts in general on Visions?
I really like the uniqueness of just all of them in general, but I would say season 2 is much easier to watch overall, because by the end of season 1, I haven't gone back to season 1 completely since it came out. But the big thing that season 2 has over season 1 is the variety of stories within it. By the end of watching all of season 1 back to back, while the last episodes in there I don't think are bad, it kind of got to a point of like, okay, the episodes before this kind of already did this, and so.
Right. Yeah. Damon's got a point here. He says this is the first time that he's ever seen a Star Trek and a Star Wars trailer launch on the same day or before. I think he's talking about Strange New Worlds, and I did see a post that one of the actors dropped some news about when this new season of Strange New Worlds is coming out.
I missed that. I do like that show, so I'll have to look into that.
I do too. And they also announced that they are starting to shoot the next season of that show before they even release this show. So that's pretty exciting. And I do. I always thought that it would have been ballsy for Star Trek to go back and shoot. You know how Star Trek, this new show takes place kind of like right before or during the Kirk era. What really bothers me is that the technology seems like really super new. It's newer than the stuff that they did in the 60s. And what the old Star Trek bridge looks like, et cetera, et cetera. I always thought it would have been gutsy if they kept on doing it that way with maybe some minor little adjustments. And you'll still have officers with the disc the discs that look like yellow plastic cubes and things like that. I thought that might have been pretty interesting. Hello there, Skywalker's Academy. Thanks for stopping by, and yeah, thanks for joining us. So tonight we're going to be talking about. Well, first of all, do you have any announcements? What is going on in the world of the Dingus Den?
Shortly after we talk about this comic here, I will be going live over on the Dingus Den to talk about the big Nintendo Direct that came out today. Usually I talk about comic stuff there, but I'm also a big gamer, and so I've decided, you know what, I want to talk about it. So me and one of my friends are going to be joining me over there to talk about the big Nintendo stuff that dropped today, which has blown up the gaming world online today.
That's nice. That's nice. Make sure to put that link in the chat, and then we'll put it on screen. But yeah, excellent. Absolutely follow Spencer when we're done here. We got together last week to dive into a classic comic book from Marvel. It's Marvel, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And Vader Dark Visions, the first in the series last week. We got a little taste of how Darth Vader was seen from a different point of view. And this episode, the second issue of Dark Visions, is interesting as well. I think, if anything, if you are not familiar with the Darth Vader Dark Visions series, I urge you guys to go find it at your local bookstore if you have a local bookstore, if it's available. I know it's probably available somewhere online, but I want to say it's an interesting take on storytelling when it comes to Darth Vader. What are your thoughts are in general on this series?
Yeah, I completely agree. I find it cool that like each and every issue is their own take on it, and it looks at Darth Vader in some different way. Especially issue 1 focused on an alien seeing Darth Vader, and then this is a different approach to how somebody would see Darth Vader, a completely different kind of character. And so it's cool to see the comparisons, even just between the first 2 issues. Yeah,
and I can't even describe it, because I'm also looking forward to next week, because that's a good one, and there was a lot of controversy when that issue first came out. But the imagery is really great. That first episode, if you guys want to go back and revisit the first live stream that we did, we talked about issue 1, but the artwork was spectacular. This one, I feel it's not as spectacular, but I think there are some cool little tidbits that we'll get to when we show a couple of these frames. But this is the original cover of Dark Visions issue number 2, and I know it had variants. I can't remember if all the issues had a variant cover. I think they did, but this was one of the variant editions, which obviously shows Vader causing ruckus with some Imperial officers. But last week you said, and I don't know what your answer is going to be, if it's too much of a spoiler before we go through the whole thing. I might ask you this again later, but last week you mentioned that this issue was one of your favorite ones of the series. Why is that?
Well, the first one was one of my favorites. This one I don't remember too much about actually going before it. But actually, though, while we're talking about it, I said I had a little bit of a special, what do you want to say, story connection to it. Sure. And this is actually one of 2 Star Wars comics that got signed. The first ever Star Wars comic I got signed, and that's by the artist there.
Holy moly, love that.
That was a couple years ago I got this signed. So.
Is that the artist, not the writer?
Yes, the artist.
Yes.
Yeah,
that is nice. Bagged and backed. Wow.
Of course.
That's nice. That's nice. And remind us who is the artist?
His name is Brian Lovell.
Nice. Excellent. So. All right. Perfect. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. So this issue, you know, I think last issue also started with a battle up in space, and
Yeah.
you know, that little alien child or whatever was, you know, looking up into the sky,
Mhm.
trying to figure out what was going on. But this one starts out also, it's a pursuit. The Imperials are after a rebel pilot, a rebel ship. And the ship looks familiar. I think it's we see this ship in Rogue One, and it's a, I think it's a V-wing, if I'm not mistaken. But you see it in Rogue. It's
Yeah,
one of
those are
the ships that are in there. Or U-wing. It's a U-wing.
let's say that. Yeah, that seems right.
Got to keep the alphabet straight here. But again, it starts out, you know, there is some Imperial pursuits, and the ship is trying to get away, and there's debris all over the place. I want to ask you a technical question, because I think last week we noticed that the artwork had a certain feel to it when it comes to layout, when it comes to the panels. This week is a little different. You can obviously see the shape of the panels in this one. And did you catch some of the differences between last week and this week? And then even within this week, there are some shapes that our story takes place inside of. What would you think of the way that this comic book was laid out?
Yeah, that definitely stood out to me, especially with this being the first page right off the bat, and like that's just unusual page layouts there, and so that definitely stood out to me right off the bat. And I found it interesting. I think this comic, while I enjoyed the art of the first one more, this one though it has a certain artistic style, and part of that was definitely due to how everything was laid out here, which it's definitely unique because you don't see a bunch of comics that really does special things with the shapes of it, especially the entire issue.
Right. And I
And
do
so it's unique.
I like last week they had a lot of overlays that, you know, exceeded the border of some of the panels, which I love.
Right.
And again, this one does something a little different. And then actually, this is something that I didn't notice when I first bought this series. I'm gonna have to take a look at, like, when we do next week, that story. I'm gonna have to take a look at how they lay out that book, because I think it might have been by design, and obviously every artist has their own way of laying out the story. But I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got Nick in the chat. Nick, how you doing? And Nicole, Nick and Nicole. That's funny. Thank you guys for stopping by. And all right, so we obviously we are focusing on a battle. This rebel pilot is trying to get away. There's a droid. Him and his droid are talking, and they're like trying to, you know, escape the clutches of the Imperial forces. You can see, obviously, there are some damaged X-wings in the foreground. Lo and behold, they did not make it, Spencer.
No. The lone U-wing.
Yes. This Imperial officer is pretty intense when it comes to this story. He is really reeling and eager to capture this rebel pilot. And this is a great frame, by the way. Failure is unacceptable.
Oh yes.
Very, very deliberate. The way they draw him too is pretty cool. Um, and this is kind of like, again, framing him in a certain way, where this is the top of the frame that I selected, but you can. It's interesting because now, you know, looking at it, there's a definite evolution to the framing, and it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just part of the visual art style of like what makes the issue stands out. Like each of the for just comparing the first two, like they each have their own ways of what makes them stand out. And then that's what can make an anthology series special, is if they can truly make each and every issue special in their own ways.
Sure. Yeah. I can't remember. Do you remember the name of this officer?
Oh no, I do not.
I think there might be a screenshot later on, but yeah. So, like I said, he's very eager to capture this ship, capture the pilot, and unfortunately, it ends up that the pilot escapes. And let's see. Oh, Commander Tilix. He's the one that's in
Right.
charge. And basically, he's asking if we captured him, and they said no. And obviously they're a little upset that he got away, but he didn't get away scot-free. There were some items that he left behind that were captured by the Empire, and some of the secrets of this rebel cell per se were revealed. So this other commander basically kind of turned, made lemonade out of lemons, if you will, and turned it around and said, it wasn't a complete failure. We did this, we did that, and overall, I think it was a success. So the Imperials are celebrating their supposed success, and that's that.
Yeah.
You remember that?
I do. Yeah, no, I find it interesting of the idea of the Imperials trying to make everything a success for themselves.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't completely turn out the way they wanted it to.
That's called alternative facts, my friend.
Right, exactly. And so and it seems like, that's always how the villains are, and especially,
Sure.
They definitely give that vibe, and probably that they do kind of like feel that way during like the original trilogy as well. And so
Sure. So Commander Tilix, how would you say it?
oh gosh, I'm the worst person with names. Tilix.
Tilix. All right, we'll go with Tilix. Commander Tilix, I guess, dismisses the fact that, okay, all right, fine, it was a success. We got what we got, and we'll just we'll chuck that up and chalk it up to a success.
Yeah.
But let's see, did I put this in the wrong order here? No. So he's remembering something that happened years ago. His watch. He walked into an officer's area on a Star Destroyer where Vader was, and he witnessed Darth Vader going nuts and killing all the commanders, all the officers that were, I guess, in charge of a mission. But they failed, and Vader basically says failure is unacceptable. And I think this is where we get, that phrase imprinted on Commander Tilix's brain, where he's like, failure is unacceptable. So he's thinking about that on every mission that he's going for. Oh, I did. You know what? Yeah. Hold on a second here. Let me see something. So let me hold on a second here. Bear with me. No, I didn't. I must have not downloaded that one image. During the conversation where the Imperials are accepting their supposed win, one of the officers comes in and says, we have to accept, I guess, Vader is on his way to collect the rebel pilot. And he freaks out because the rebel pilot escaped. And like he's, I guess, what's the term? Shitting bricks?
Right.
Because he remembers that failure is unacceptable. So, obviously he goes through that. But the rebel pilot is evading the Imperial forces. And this is a very interesting frame. Commander Tilix is so desperate to capture this rebel pilot because he knows that Darth Vader is on his way, and something bad might happen if they come back empty-handed. So the space slug seems familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah. I just thought this shot in general, just a Star Destroyer going into that is just so bonkers and wild.
Yeah.
And all the events leading up to it is just crazy as well, because there's a lot of things about Tylex sends out all those TIE fighters.
He sends all the TIE fighters.
All of them.
Yes.
They all get screwed up. And then that's why he's like, oh, we need to now send our Star Destroyer through this asteroid field. No stop. And then the U-Wing hides in there. And that's how we end up with this, which is just wild.
Yeah. I mean, it shows the desperation of Tylex.
It really does.
You know, he needs to get this pilot no matter what. He'd rather sacrifice a few TIE fighters than, you know, face Vader and tell him that he's empty-handed. But yeah, this is one pretty impactful image. Star Destroyer going through or down the space slug's jowl there. So they're following him all over the place. This is one of the panels that, you know, as we start to roll, the panels start to change a little bit. And this is something that I didn't notice when I was reading it at first. And obviously I have the physical copy, but when I read it on, you know, it just shows you part of the panel and you can't really see the big picture. But obviously it's kind of a great little homage to a Star Destroyer. It's the same shape, the triangular Star Destroyer. You can see the engines on the top there. But this is such a great way of you know, explain or tell the story in a different way with panels. We're used to just kind of like squares. Here's the next one. Here's the next one. But over the last few years, they've gotten really creative with how they position the panels, which is kind of cool. I love the overlaps. I love the call outs to that center, the two frames there. It really shows you, again, the desperation of Tylex going through hell and high water to try to get this rebel pilot.
Yeah. Something I just noticed about this page is you notice there's all that stasis, the debris around there, the little asteroids and whatnot that's just kind of laying there. Which just perfectly shows the situation of where that Star Destroyer is at the time when you reach there. Of like, it's literally surrounded by rocks there. Yeah, in the front one there.
Absolutely, very cool. So again, you know, showing more of the frame here, where we see that it's the shape of a Star Destroyer, and you know, they go through a process of searching for this rebel pilot, the ship. They do find him, but by the time they find him, it's a little too late. Seems like there are rebels that show up, and obviously the Star Destroyer is defenseless because, like you mentioned earlier, they got rid of all their TIE fighters to try to get this one ship. Those TIE fighters were destroyed because of the asteroid field and other things that were, you know, against them. So these the Star Destroyer has already been damaged again, like you noticed. The damage on the bottom half of this frame kind of signifies the damage of the Star Destroyer. It's kind of a visceral thing too, because, you know, you're reading the story, but you're also watching the images. But then again, you're also watching the framing, which adds another layer to the story. What do you think of that?
No, it's such a unique. Oh my gosh, it's such a unique way to add to the story there with all the framing of it. Because, like I mentioned earlier, like you just don't really see. I can't think of really many stories. I mean, none are off the top of my head. Although I'm sure there's others I've read that takes advantage of it in this sort of unique way. Especially as you mentioned, the symbolism there with the Star Destroyer being all broken and cracked everywhere, which is just it's great as you're witnessing like its final moments there after being heavily damaged and all the are those B-wings there? Is that what those are called? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, they look like frigates. So there's three frigates, three of those
bombers,
frigates.
Right? That's what they look like there to me. And so anyway, interesting seeing them like finish off the ship essentially there.
Yeah. And again, you know, they're calling out to abandon ship. They didn't get the rebel pilot, the escaped pilot. They came out empty-handed, And the last frame, which is I didn't load it up because I couldn't find it, but it's basically can you guess what the last frame is? I bet you can. And maybe the chat can guess what the last frame is, story wise.
Might be able to, yeah.
It's Vader,
right,
telling Tylix that what? Failure is unacceptable.
Right, exactly. Going full circle.
Going full circle. Poor Commander Tylix. I guess he failed. It was unacceptable, and he reaped the rewards, in quotes. But yeah, just another. I mean, these stories are simple. They're short, but they're pretty effective. Wouldn't you say?
I'd agree. So it's something that can make an anthology work as long as you have something that works within a single issue. Which, I think the idea of that's harder than what it seems like, because you have to figure out, well, how can you tell the perfect, or not perfect, but like a solid story within the, say, 20 pages that you're given.
Sure.
And so trying to figure out like such a simple premise here, and then being able to actually tell something complete that works. It's cool to see them make it work here. It's cool to see all the different ideas off of it. And this one in particular, I found it interesting how you didn't get to see like that much Vader, but it's still all about Vader after that first couple page setup of like what's going on. And so it was an interesting idea for this one, a very different way that you see Vader shown off. Especially with getting inside just another Imperial, what was he, a captain, whatever he is there of the ship.
Right.
Seeing getting into his head there, I thought it was quite interesting.
And you said something that I think really resonates with me. I think this is a Vader story, but you don't see a lot of Vader, but there is a presence, especially with this, the Imperial fleet. You can tell that the characters in the story are, hey, Ubaldo, how are you? Good to see you. You definitely can tell that there is a presence, and people, officers know who Vader is. They fear him. We're in the thick of things. So it's, and kudos to the author, to the writer, because I think he really understands the subliminal power, I guess, of a character like Darth Vader. A lot of people say that, the less Vader, the more powerful. And I think this story definitely demonstrates that fact.
I will completely agree with that. Yeah. I think though too, I didn't necessarily think about some of the symbolism that you can take from this cover as well, but it's kind of interesting where, in that first cover, how you see like the person in the cloak there, it kind of gives off that same sort of vibe that we're talking about as well, representing that in some regard. A curse, being Vader's curse on the ship from him. And so it's interesting.
It is very powerful, and I think it's close to horror if you kind of think about it. I think
it kind of is,
the way that the red flash, whatever that is, kind of splits the screen in two. It hits the Star Destroyer, but it splits the character of Tylix's face right down the middle, and I think that's pretty powerful. And then framing that around the shape of Darth Vader is even more so. So a while ago, I think we were talking about how even third world countries, if you show someone the silhouette of Darth Vader, they'll know.
Right? Yeah.
And it's
everywhere.
It's a powerful image. But and obviously I think the variant cover does a little more on a traditional sense when it comes to visuals. But I really enjoy this first original cover because it kind of gives you it says a question like, what is going on? And I think with that horror vibe, after reading the story, you really can tell what the story's about.
Absolutely.
Any questions?
It's I was just going to say really quick though, it's one of those covers where I feel like, especially modern day, about the vast majority of covers either don't tell you anything about the story, or when they do, it's nearly like nothing remotely about it, or a spoiler at the end of it. Like nothing that really like tells you in one image, this is what the overall story is about. And that cover, I think it's one of the few cases nowadays where it actually really does show that, of like, this is what the story is about, summarized in one mystery cover to kind of make you want to read the book.
Yeah, and you're obviously a big comic book guy. I think one of the things that I love about these, especially this anthology series, but just comics in general, I think when it's a limited run, and the last comic book series that I actively bought was the Darth Vader by Charles Soule.
Okay.
But one of the things that I really enjoy about comic books and animation to the same degree, I think because animation and comic books are so structured, I think they have to tie in their story a little bit more than live action. It's interesting because they you can't fudge around. Like in live action, you'll have a scene, two actors or whatever will get together and they'll kind of maybe dance around the main topic,
Mm-hmm.
as long as you get to the main story. But with animation, obviously, you have to draw everything. You have to be precise. The story in a comic book is the same way. There's no fudge factor. It's all, it all needs to be precise to be able to, tell the story in an effective manner. And I think comic books really does that. It's almost it's an art form, really. But this episode,
Yeah.
or this issue, I keep saying episode, this issue is really a great way of kind of instilling the fear of Vader. Even in the background, like you said, it's like it's not even a story about him, but it's a story about this Star Destroyer, Captain Tylix, and how he sees Vader, and how probably a lot of officers see Vader. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I completely agree. You pretty much just hit something right on the head, that I was thinking about when you were talking about, comics and their different, how it can tell stories in a unique way. Most people think about superheroes. Obviously, superheroes is the biggest genre in comics, but that's for what a lot of people, that's just what it is. But there's definitely more to it than that. And I would say the second biggest genre there is within the comics world is horror stories, because of them being able to tell stories like this, and the visuals it can do, and the different chapters to telling that story. And so it's cool to see something like that also just brought into. Well, also just seeing a horror Star Wars story is cool too, in some fashion, or that sort of idea applied to a Star Wars story, when you don't really see, not on this level really, on screen at all. I guess the scariest Star Wars we get on screen is like one of the monsters, or aliens or something. But like, other than that, like, we don't see anything like this and how it really affects people.
Absolutely. So next week we have Dark Visions 2. And when I saw this cover, I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So next week will be interesting. And I think, we're going to get into a little bit of controversy, because I think out of all 5 issues, this one really bothered a lot of people. This story really bugged the crap out of a lot of people. So that'll be interesting to see. Anyways, any final thoughts on the Dark Visions episode? Or, I keep saying episode. I'm in like TV movie mode.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't know if I have anything like really anything else about this one.
But it was a solid story though, right?
Yeah, it's a great story, solid story. I'd still say I like the first one a little more, but like, it was a solid follow-up. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And so,
and
anyone that hasn't read it, read it. And so definitely go check it out. For any digital readers, it's out on Marvel Unlimited. All these stories are out on Marvel Unlimited for it to go check out, which is definitely the most cost-effective way, probably. Well, yeah, I mean, if you wanted to outright buy it on Amazon, it might be fairly cheap on there.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I read somewhere that it was people are having a hard time finding it. But yeah, it's they're interesting, and I think you said something, I think before, when we first started, it's an interesting way of looking at Darth Vader. And I think each of these 5 issues have characters in the story that look at Vader in such a different way. And next week is no exception. Next week is very interesting, and I'm looking forward to that one. But yeah, at the end of our series here, I would love to ask you, as far as there's perspective of these characters looking at Vader or perceiving him in a certain way. I know, as fans, I know a lot of reasons why people enjoy the character of Darth Vader, but it'll be interesting to see, to hear what your thoughts are on the perspective of Vader as a character after this series. And I know online a lot of people are asking, are these stories canon? But I don't think it matters if they're canon or not. I think it matters what the core is when it comes to what they're trying to say. And I think, really at this moment, 2 issues in, they're really doing a good job at expressing, I guess, the expectations of who Darth Vader is in relation to these other characters. So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. I'm excited to see where the others go. Even though I've read this before, like a couple years ago, maybe closer to 3. Oh, well, okay, it would have been over a couple years ago because that's when I got the thing signed. And so little over, probably closer to 3 years than when I read it. And so, and I really only remember the first issue. So it's interesting going back to it. And even as reading the second one, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this now. It's coming back to me.
Sure.
And so it'll be cool I'm looking forward to going back and visiting those others, as I think it'll be quite interesting. Excited to see how else it adds a new spin on Vader. I really don't remember that much about it.
Yeah. Great stuff. Spencer, Dingus Den.
Something I'd like to add really quick, since I looked it up. For anybody that is interested in just outright buying this, you can get it digitally on Amazon for $8.99, $9.
All 5 issues.
All 5 issues together.
Okay,
so that's
cool.
less than $2 per issue. The other thing that you can do as well is for any Kindle Unlimited subscribers, and probably it's part of that. And I could be wrong, but I think
I heard it was free on Kindle.
Yeah, well, if you have Kindle Unlimited, that's their Kindle service. But I think all the comics that's part of Kindle Unlimited is also part of Comixology. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure they are.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. Excellent.
So ways to join us, read along. Definitely like to hear your thoughts about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're able to have access to issue 3, read that, check it out, and then come back next week as we continue our talk about Darth Vader.
Absolutely.
Dark Visions. Excellent. Spencer, tell the folks where people can find you to say hello there. And I know you got another show coming up. Why don't you tell folks about that as well?
Go over to the Dingus Den on YouTube. I posted a link in the chat. I don't know if it showed the show in there, but over there, I'm going to be doing something different. Usually Dingus Den is all about comics, which is what makes this little series that we're doing perfect, right? Because I'm such a big comic fan, and I've leaned really heavy for a good bit now, mainly just focusing on comic content on my channel. But with the big gaming news that happened today, and other reasons surrounding, like, you know what, this is the time when I'm going to do some gaming stuff on Dingus Den. I'm very excited to talk about. There's a big Nintendo Direct today that showed the first software that's going to be on the Switch too, as well as going into a bit of the hardware itself. And so I'm going to be joined by one of my good friends I've known for a long time to talk about this, as we're both big Nintendo nerds. So if you're into gaming at all, be sure to come check it out, as I might try to do more gaming stuff on Dingus Den. We'll see, as comics and gaming are my 2 biggest hobbies.
Excellent. And as far as the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast, I've been working on a show with the guys over at Conversations, Pat and Charles. We were talking about, talking about Vader. We posed the question, is Disney handling Darth Vader in a correct manner? So we posed that question. We had our takes. I've been working on that episode for a while now, but other projects get in the way. But I'm hoping that episode drops next Thursday. But the first 2 episodes of our discussion here about Dark Visions, I'm going to put those in the audio chat as well. If you guys are not into YouTube, you can listen to it on your way to and fro.
Awesome.
As you're driving around, like Ubaldo. Yeah, and then I just recorded a special episode that I have to put all the bells and whistles. We spoke with Colin Cantwell's former partner. Colin Cantwell, if you are familiar, he's the guy that designed the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter and the Death Star. So I'm putting together a show with that, and that'll come out in May sometime. And I also put together a panel for May 25th, the week of May 25th. We're going to be recording and showcasing our discussion on Star Wars, the special editions. We've got takes. Some of them are hot takes. Some of them are not so hot takes. But we'll be talking about our likes, our dislikes, and do we judge George Lucas? Do we put him in a bad light because of the special edition? So it'll be lots to talk about in May for the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. I'm going to try to get Brad on here sooner or later, but absolutely. Guys in the chat, thank you very much for hanging out with Spencer and I. We're talking about Vader, Dark Visions. We got 3 more issues to go Wednesday nights right here on the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. If you have any thoughts about the comic book or anything else for that matter, we'd love to hear you. Leave a voicemail over at our hotline. It's 773-234-8659. We are proud founding members of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network shenanigans, head on over to bio.link/Red5. Until next time, Spencer, you know it's always sunny on Scarif.
I do.
And
quite nice.
And that's the Scuttlebutt. Talk to you guys later. Have a good night, everybody.